All right, good day to Dr. Irene Aina and my fellow viewers. I'm Parimala, daughter of Paari, matrix number D201910888035. I'm from Group C for Reflective Practice in Classroom course BIP3073. So I would like to present my reflective video based on the teaching video that I've done previously. So the contents in my reflective video is our introduction, cognition, practice, observation, rationalization, action, and also critical reflection based on the teaching video. So these are the information about the teaching video. The topic that I chose was nouns based on grammar, and the target students were Form 2 intermediate level students. The focus is to make them familiarize with the common and proper nouns that will be mostly used in our daily lives and also in sentences during the students' writing. So the target of this teaching video is to learn the characteristics and examples of common and proper nouns. So the teaching and learning materials that I used were PowerPoint slides and also virtual worksheets. So let us move on to the first stage, which is cognition. So basically, for the lesson planning, in the beginning of the lesson, I reflect on what they have learned in their previous lesson, and through that lesson, I ask them to identify the mistakes that they have made in their writings. After that, I make them realize that those mistakes are under the grammar rule, which is noun. So this is to give them a clear picture of why they were about to learn nouns on that class, on that day. So through this, they also did peer checking on the mistakes to understand the topic more deeply. As an example, I took one of the students' mistake in the writings in a previous class and explained why that mistake was done with the students in the classroom. This will encourage them to explore more about grammar, understand and correct their mistakes instantly. After that, in order to start the lesson, I showed them a few pictures and asked them to identify what the pictures are. So, in this part, they interacted with me by telling what they saw in the slides presented. This obviously helped to create a good bonding between the students and teacher. So, for the next practice stage, the activities taken place during the teaching lesson for the first presentation stage, I threw a mistake from their peers and started a short discussion in order to reveal the topic of the day. So this activity was conducted for 5 minutes. So, in the practice stage, after I explained regarding the topic, a pair task was conducted where they have to list down five common and proper nouns that were projected in the slides after a concise explanation in the classroom. The task was carried out for about 5 minutes, and the students did well. Yet, one pair interacted in the chat box of the virtual meeting. So, the guidance was given to them earlier so that they will get some ideas of what is common and proper nouns. They have carried out the discussion as per the time allocated, and they did not question me about the task. And I assume that all the students understand the instructions very well, and I moved on to discuss the answers, and I also provided feedback to the students about their answer choices. So, in the production stage, after the discussion and explanation, another task took place where each student needs to identify the common and proper noun in all the sentences given in the slides individually. So, in the previous stage, I used a group discussion, and in this production stage, I prefer the students to work individually. So, the time allocated for this task was about 10 minutes. So, some of the students had performed well, yet I did not receive any responses from the others. They seem so quiet in the classroom since they don't know the answers. So, for this observation part, what I have been taught and learned, what the students have been learned is throughout my observation, the students enjoyed and acknowledged the topic that was learned in the virtual classroom. All the students cooperated well and they asked and clarified their doubts while I was conveying the information. Yet the students gave less prompt responses when I asked questions regarding nouns, and this made me to repeat the questions and answers again and again. So I also noticed that the students practiced peer checking to correct and help each other constantly in learning new topics together in the classroom. But some of them were still confused and not confident in answering correctly to the randomly thrown questions, and they were too nervous with their answers. They also were so reliable with their peers, like they will let their friends to answer because they don't know the answer, or even though they know the answer they were shy to reveal their answers. So the critical incident about this, I was confronted with a critical incident, which was some of the students were facing difficulties in understanding the examples given for especially proper nouns. So, in the context part, I used PowerPoint slides as the teaching aid to explain about the topic with some of the short notes and only a few examples without showing how to use those examples in a sentence form. So, the incident rose from my attempt to help the students understand about common and proper nouns. So the problem faced by the students were during the virtual classroom. I noticed that students have some troubles in using correct nouns in their writing task given in the class, although they are in the intermediate level in English proficiency. So it is surprised that they can write an essay very well, but with the minor mistakes in grammar, especially in nouns, directly affects their scoring in writing. So after I explained the definition of nouns along with the few examples of words, I clarify with them whether they understand the examples given. Unfortunately, they did not answer my question except one student. One of the students was kept on asking me for examples, for more examples, which made me to evaluate the examples that I gave if it was insufficient or there was lack of explanation on the examples. Although some students perform well in the classroom, I still have to reflect and repeat what I taught them in the earlier stages again. So this made the other students feel boredom and they felt like wasting their time listening to the same explanation again, and this made them distract their focus in the classroom. So the different understanding level of the students unfortunately made the classroom become more passive. So for this rationalization part, the challenges and that I have faced, I encountered some critical challenges because I seldom approach each student individually after each explanation. Although during individual tasks I've asked each student, yet I fail to ask each and everyone during the pair work due to time management in the classroom. Moreover, they were students with different levels of proficiency. So the high level proficiency students, like the two boys, were interacted promptly and did not feed any opportunity for the lower proficiency students to take part in the discussion and answer together. And through the effective interaction, I assume that they understand what I thought. And move on to the next part of the lesson, because if I focus on the lower proficiency students, then the other students will distract easily from the topic since they have grasped the information from the beginning. So what I should have done is like I maybe might have to mingle the low level students with the high proficiency level students, because um, the higher level students may guide the lower level students to perform better in the classroom. To overcome this type of challenges, I should have changed my teaching method, where I should have given examples not only in the forms of words but also in the form of sentences or passages for them to identify common and proper nouns, so that the students can get a clear picture and meaning of the topic. So the first was too brief until they don't understand why there were some of the words with uppercase and some of the word need to mention specifically. I think that I have asked the students to come up with their own examples too soon, and I also should familiarize the students with more visual aids so that they can grasp more information, and it would be easier for them to think on their own and come up with creative answers during their pair work. Moreover, instead of letting them answer in the first task, I should have involved myself along with the students and guide them equally for a better understanding in the topic learned. Other than that, I should also initiate myself to approach the silent students and give positive feedback without forcing them to involve in the classroom discussion. So it is because I want every student to become active participants in class and be bold in asking questions and clarifications about the topic learned on that day. So at the end of the class, the important part is how many students really understand the topic learned during the virtual classroom, rather than how effective the discussion can be. So for my critical reflection, according to my teaching video, the critical incident that took place has given me an opportunity to reflect on my own teaching styles and skills that trigger the students' learning ability. I realized that I hold several types of beliefs about different dimensions of teaching, and I should change the teaching styles by giving the priority to the learner's knowledge that exists and the skills to deliver the knowledge that they have not known. So I believe that the best way to teach English is by allowing them to discover from their mistakes and experiences. And the most vital part is the understanding of the students in the topics taught in the classroom. I should have occasionally paused along the way to reflect on what I have taught them so far and how the task that I created will make them understand deeper about the topic that really matters in the student's learning process. When I explained the definition of the nouns, there were still some students who did not get clearly what I explained, and some of them need more examples. So, in this case, I think I should evaluate the contents of my notes to give them according to their level of understanding, and at the same time I should let them explore by themselves in the topic so that there will be a satisfaction in their learning process in classroom. When I reflect on this, it raises my self-awareness by being more aware of what I am doing or going to do with the students in the classroom. What I always believe is creating interesting materials in an task in the classroom will make the students awake and be proactive in learning new things in classroom. For the many different ability levels and needs of my students in my classroom. Next, when I started to analyze the critical incidents, it made me to look at the teaching and learning environment critically. I also discovered that I need to be critical thinker in order to examine myself in every aspect of teaching, like during the explanation of the topic and during the task time for the learners. The task that I choose from that for them to be done in the classroom should also be applicable for all types of students. And for that, I think I also have to use the Bloom's taxonomy in constructing productive tasks so that each of them can perform well in the classroom. Based on the critical incident, I believe that I should try a change in my teaching belief, which is focusing on understanding learners by being creative in giving works to them to complete in the class, such as letting them to watch videos related to the topic and listening to audio clips for critical learning among students. So such visual aids will help them to learn in a better way. Other than that, pushing the students to perform beyond their ability right in the beginning stage was one of my mistakes too. So I should have given them more information before directly giving the exercises based on the nouns. So the students might feel lost and less of guidance while performing such exercises. Besides, the critical incident had taught me to adapt the situation in the classroom practice. When I am able to determine the learner's abilities, then I will be able to choose and modify my behavior in the teaching process appropriately. So far, that's all for my teaching video, and I hope you enjoy this. Thank you so much.